Hello everyone, I'm Shazia Damnudi, Marketing Coordinator here at SmartSimple. I'd like to welcome you to this webinar entitled Arcadia X Portals. This quarter we'll be focusing on portal design. Before we begin, I would like to remind you about our upcoming SmartSimple events. Registration for Elevate is now open. This year it will be held at the Sheraton Grand Nashville in Nashville, Tennessee, from October 17th to 19th. Register at smartsimple.com under our SmartSimple Events tab. Also, save the date for Block Party New York, September 6th, Block Party Nashville, October 17th, Block Party Dublin, November 22nd. We also have some webinars already lined up, such as our GDPR Managing Consent and Compliance webinar on August 14th and 16th, and our August 2018 Upgrade Q&A webinar on August 21st and 23rd. Don't forget to register at smartsimple.com/events and be sure to look out for a lot of great content we have planned for you this summer. Now, without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to today's presenter. Talal Raymond has been with SmartSimple for over 2 years and is a technical account advisor. He provides level 2 and premium support services. Interesting fact about Talal, he can speak 5 languages. During the webinar, you're welcome to ask your questions by typing it into the chat box within your Zoom console. We will answer all your questions at the end of the presentation. And now I'd like to pass over to Talal to get started.
Hello guys, this is Talal. I'm, as Chinzia introduced, Technical Account Advisor for a couple of clients. Today I will be presenting you the webinar for the Arcadia X Portal. We'll be covering a lot of bits and pieces of how the Arcadia X works, some best practices, we'll discuss some features, and at the end we'll have a demo. I'll try to show you most of the configuration settings, all the list views, how to enable certain settings. So we'll go through all the details and hopefully cover most of it. But after the end of the demo, we'll have a Q&A session, and any questions you guys have, I'll try to answer those. And if I can't at the moment, I will be creating tickets and getting back to you from there. Okay? So without further ado, let's start the presentation. So initially we'll talk about Portal in general. Why do we need one? Then Arcadia X. What is Arcadia X? And all these different features that we have that we'll talk about in the Arcadia X details section. And then we'll just go right into the demo. Okay? So what is a portal? Portal is really just a view that a user gets upon logging into the system. So basically the system is designed for users, which it is something that is designed for users when they log in, they see the most relevant information for them or that is provided to them. An example would be an applicant logging into the system. The purpose they log into the system could be either applying for a grant or viewing their report backs or setting up a report form, for example. So having all that readily available on the screen is really what a portal is. And having it there in an accessible way where there doesn't need to be a lot of maybe instructions for the end user to really, so that don't have difficulty, finding things around. So it's just a designed interface that has everything that a user needs based on their permissions or their role in the system, and everything is readily available. So it just really helps simplify the interface for just alike people, like a group of people that are that have common permissions. So that grouping is already taken care in SmartSimple via the roles. We basically group all the people based on, and we put them in a role basically, and then we can permission display and do all the other settings based on that grouping. So even Arcadia X will be an add-on to it. We'll just talk about in detail in a bit. Let's talk about what Arcadia X is. It's just basically a interface design that we currently use. Previously we had other portal designs as well, which were a little more complex, which required some external or prerequisite HTML knowledge. with Arcadia X, it's a very easy method of building a custom user interface. Not just really building it, but maintaining it, and also adding to it in the future if anything's required. So it has the basic features that any portal would have. It's like the tab-based navigation, menu items for ease of access, personal list views. We're all familiar with list views throughout the SmartSimple system. We will be using those in the Arcadia X portal as well. Shortcuts is one of the big ones. As previously we talked about, we want everything to be easy for the end user to find and go through. So shortcuts is the way to it. Then also we'll be maybe looking into a few reports or how to reference reports. So here's a screenshot of the Arcadia X portal. It covers, it just highlights the basic or the areas or the terminology that we use for these different areas in the Arcadia X portal. As you can see on the top right-hand corner, we have the user menu items, things that involve like going to your profile, changing your password, going to your organization profile, anything that a end user would require or need immediately. And right after that, we have the main menu options. They work in a similar way. They basically are links to different areas in SmartSimple, and they just again are a very easy access for the end user experience. And as you can see on the first section on the left hand side that's labeled as shortcuts, it is a section, so let me define sections in detail so that it makes a lot more sense in Arcadia X. So sections, basically, I see them as containers in the Arcadia X design. These containers can, have different entities from throughout the system, display in those sections. Those entities could be list views, shortcuts, images, text. So any different types of information from throughout the system can be displayed in one way or the other form within one of these sections. Just two examples of the sections. In one of the sections above, we are using shortcuts, displaying a list of shortcuts in that small section. And down below, you'll see it's an example from a section that is storing not just one list view, but multiple list views with different maybe filters and other things attached. So again, we talked about containers. So containers can contain a chart, custom link. Custom link could be anything internal, external. List views from throughout the system. All we need to do is save them as system list views so we can access them. And we could use media files, sections. We can have sections within sections and have multiple tabs maybe. Then again, shortcuts and text templates. So these are just kind of different visual representations of the different types of containers or objects that we can add in the containers. Again, a closer view of the user menu items on the top hand right and the main menu items. Just to add to the main menu items, the reason or the more I understand most of you guys are system admins on your end, and you have access to the app drawer or the 9-dotted icon on the top right. That gives you access to throughout the system. However, imagine if there's a user that does not have access to the 9-dotted icon because they're not system admin. We can give them access to the different UTAs or different areas in the SmartSimple system via the main menu items. And it's just more a lot more easier to access. So without further ado, let's just jump right into the demo. It will be a very open demo where I will show you how things are currently set up for whatever I've set up in the backup environment of the demo system. We'll be adding on to it as well, talking about new features, and maybe just, we'll have some hands-on practice as well. Okay, so here's an applicant logged in into the system, which has Arcadia X design set up on their portal. It's, as you can see, it is very neat, a lot of white space around it. That is, again, the white paper theme that we introduced in our one of our latest upgrades. It displays all the information as it previously did. It just has a lot more space around, so that for better visuals, really. So again, here you can see the sections do not have our like round edges or the boxes that we had in the screenshot. That's the difference in the white paper theme as well. These section containers are really seamless. If you see, the first part of the Arcadia X Portal is a section above right here that is holding all the shortcuts as we see on the screen. Then we have another section right here, which is displaying a list view, but in the form of a chart. And it can also move to in the normal list view form as well. On the right-hand side, again, there is another list view with the funding opportunities that an end user can apply to. So I will just head back as the system admin to the system, and let's see how the portal is set up. Okay, so then again, this is one more example of the Arcadia X Portal. It's set up for the system admin. Has a lot more visuals. I'll quickly show you what's in the back and then what's really making them display in this form. So to start off with, we initially talked about how we group people in SmartSimple in in a form of roles. So we already have a certain grouping that we can use to build our portals on, or maybe use it as a fundamental baseline for who the what you call portal is being designed for. Just to make a little more sense, if you go to user roles right now, so we have grouping of applicants, internal people, staff, or executive staff, and all different types of user types. So we have already grouped them in SmartSimple. Now we could use the same grouping to create portals for all that group of people. So they fall under the same umbrella and they all see the same Arcadia X design, whoever has that specific role. For the example, I am logged in as an individual user that has the individual role. I'll quickly show you the user profile as well. So the example that I'm using is Eric Test. Do you guys want me to zoom in onto the screen, or is it okay? It should be readable. So I'll just quickly show you what roles this person has. This person only has individual role, and so anything that this person sees is coming from the individual role. So if I take you back, this will really clear up one of the, confusions or the questions that might come along afterwards. So I'll just try to answer it ahead of time. If I go to the individual role right now, what you will notice that I do not have anything set up on the portal itself. But still, when we log in as the user, we see all these sections with shortcuts in certain areas and multiple list views. Why is that? That is because the roles are previously, not previously, so there's just two approaches to create portals. The first one is to create the portal itself in its individual role. So whoever has that role will have access to that specific portal that is set up for inside that role itself. The other approach is to create a common portal where we built everything. Everything, when I say everything, I mean literally like all the different areas of SmartSimple system for different roles are all created here in one big place. And the only way we control who sees what is on these individual sections or main menu items or any item at all in the common portal has who it has access to and who has deny access. So we're using the permissions here to control who sees what. The benefits, pros and cons of, let's just quickly kind of touch on those. The good point about the common portal is that there's lots of users that are internal, external, or could be any type of user that share a lot of things in common with other people in the company or in organizations. Recreating those sections or recreating those settings in their individual portal will be a repetitive task. So imagine if, go back to the Arcadia X design. So if, for example, this shortcut menu was common to internal staff executive, and internal staff XYZ. At that point, we will create that section in the common portal, and we just name it as we would want it to be, and we just enable it for those 3 specific roles. What that does is that we would have to just create one section and not really copy paste or redo the same items again in those individual roles. We'll know further, like more in detail, when I quickly show you how that specific role is set up. Just as remember that the user that I showed you has the individual role. So we will see what this role has access to in the common portal. Okay, we'll head back to the common portal. I'll just use a browser function or just a find function on the browser that helps me find any keywords that has individual typed in. Here you can see that I have 4 instances of where individual role is selected. So so then again, these are, let me talk about, so I guess we're kind of deviating away, focusing more on the common portal versus the individual portal. Let me talk about the items, and then we'll talk about the permissions as well at the same time. If you see, this is this page where the portal is set up for the individual portal. As I mentioned, it is designed in the common portal because just to save, or it's just the best practice. It helps us build on portals. So we'll just stay on the screen. So I'll show you. So these are the user menu items that we talked about from the presentation. So these user menu items were the My Profile, Password Reset, Logout, Login. Those are default functionality. So wherever we see that this individual role has access to, we'll be able to see. Let's just quickly see how the My Profile is set up as a user menu item. So the link type, these link types, I mean, as you can see, there's multiple options. We can have some preset options such as the company profile or user profile. These are presets so that people don't have to find the link or how to access to that. These are like the most basic or the most default ones that people usually would like to add. So these are all pre-built. Anything that needs to be custom, if you wanted them to be able to access a certain area within the SmartSimple or maybe an external wiki page, you could go in custom and add the URL here, and that will become a user menu item for the type of role that you're creating it for. We'll just flip it back to company profile as it was set. Go back. So another shortcut that or another user menu item that this person or this role had access to was the language. Let's quickly show you how that was set up. So it's the, let me just take you back to the portal itself in a bit. So you see it has Espanol, French selected in the language dropdown. If I take you back to the portal design, it will display as these options up here. And like I showed you, the My Profile and the main menu item, this appears here. If we remove the access from the Arcadia X, the common portal for this user menu item for the role, it will disappear from here. So it is the same permissioning or concept as we have throughout the SmartSimple system with fields, with other different instances. So it is, again, the same permissioning. I'll just focus one more time on the permission. So who has access to it and who doesn't have access to it, that can be defined here. Then further down, we have, after the user menu items, we have the main menu items that appear at top right here. These, again, follow the same concept because we are in the common portal. We have to allow access to who needs to see this certain section itself or the menu items. So only the individual role that I was logged in as, they have access to home. That's why when we log into their instance, we are only presented with one menu item, as compared to my view as system admin. I have access to multiple menu items on the screen. So let's just dig in and see how the individual portal is set up. As you see, the find function helps me highlight to kind of identify where I have access or I do not have access, as we can see in this area, that I do not see my applications because the individual role is in the deny role category. So when we are in the main menu main menu items, as you can see, we can give them a caption description if somebody needs to add a description so that somebody afterwards, if configuring, they would know from the description which area they're directly pointing at. Then again, these main menu items could have sections, multiple sections or tabs that you pick and choose between the types. Then the updated theme, the wallpaper, the white paper background that just makes everything look a lot more neater, a lot more space to move around in. And further down, so I'll try to switch between screens so that it makes a lot more sense, and I could show you exactly where certain things are coming from. So I'll open up the first section in the system admin view. As you can see, in the first section we have welcome at first name, at last name, at. So what that does is really it resolves it on the go, and whoever logs in has the first name and last name. So it's more personalized for that person that logs in. So the first section that we have is a shortcut type. We have a little title, and then the only options that we have are to select from like what shortcuts are available to this person. I'll just switch back quickly to really show you how this appears when it's configured. So these are the shortcuts that are selected in the selection window at the bottom in the configuration mode. So whatever shortcuts we give them access to are displayed in this section above. I'll go through the shortcuts in a brief moment. So all the shortcuts lie under the shortcut section. At the bottom, we'll go through in a bit, but what the user sees in that certain section comes from the selection of shortcuts. So we can have, because we are in the common portal, we have all the shortcuts in one place, and we would need to enable just a handful of shortcuts to a certain group, a role. Then we will just basically create a section for them and just choose what shortcuts they need to see, and just make sure that we go through the permissions and only enable it for that certain role. That was the first section, so I'll just quickly go through the rest of the sections, and then we'll start building, or maybe at least create a couple of shortcuts or list views as per request. So, okay, so we can always use this. It works the same way as a folder path works. So the more deeper we go into sections, we can always go back to the previous page or path. So the first one we saw was the shortcut section. Then we have another one where a beautiful chart was displaying on the left-hand side. You can see it is a section that is, again, using one of the object containers from the presentation, where we talked about that we can add list views to these certain areas of the portal. Let me make sure I'm selecting the right one. Learning opportunity. I missed my applications. Okay, so this was the one with the chart. Let me just quickly give you a recap of what I'm talking about. So this is one right here. Let me quickly reload it. The chart appears. So it's just a visual representation that there is one application in progress. If we had applications from different statuses, we would have different bar charts displaying the numbers for what is the count for a certain status. Let me quickly show you how this one is set up backend. So again, this is a section. We've in the section type we have selected chart. So this is one of the types of containers. And if you scroll down, we have very similar settings as when we are adding a list view to a certain section. So first thing, we will select the list view that we need to add as a chart. Just keep in mind that these list views need to be created ahead of time. I mean, I believe you guys will, if there's any questions, there's definitely a webinar on the list views as well, where it will talk a lot in detail about what columns to add, and if you need to add more columns or remove columns, and attach a filter so that everybody sees information that is filtered for their personal requirement or needs. Once that list view with the filter is selected, now we know that the information that is coming is filtered down for that specific user, whoever is accessing it through their portal. Then we can just attach the list view here. Then we have the options to enable view options and show search panel, which opens up it gives you the access to be able to search on the list view that is presented in the chart. What type of views we have access to? So we have a chart view, table view, and a list view. So what is the view that the user gets when they see that section? You can define the x-axis, y-axis, and give names as to provide more information about what the x-axis is and the y-axis. And then we have the aggregation type at the bottom that will do a count of what type of count are we doing. So for example, if there was a field that had a number value, we could do average sum or count. For our purpose, because we are not calculating any numbers, we're just counting the number of records in that list view. We've selected the count function. That's why it gives us the number up on the top of the bar. Okay. Let's see. There's one more section, a very similar idea. If I go to this funding section, then again, this is the last section in our portal that I previously showed you. A very straightforward section where the type is list view and the list view is selected, which was pre-built with certain filters on it that is displaying only information that are specific to this applicant. And again, don't forget the permissions. This is what is different from the common portal and the individual portals. Before that question arises, I'll quickly show you this difference, or maybe talk a little bit more about it in detail. So I'll go to the individual role of that person, and we'll compare it with the common portal. So the individual role, as you can see, if we had a portal set up, we do not have any section that defines who this section is available to. That is because that is predefined, and whoever has that individual role will by default get those sections. So there is no other roles that can access those sections. That's why we do not have allow or deny permissions for any of the sections. While on the common portal, we have permissioning in all the bits and pieces where you can allow or deny based on which role you don't want to see a certain shortcut or a section, and which ones should see that specific section. So these were the three sections from the the portal design. I will quickly just go through a quick new feature that we're introducing the new upgrade. So we'll start a new shortcut. We'll call it webinar. So very straightforward fields. Description will provide us a description. Category will categorize the shortcuts. Let's say if we have multiple groups of shortcuts, if you need to categorize them, they're easier to list here as well as they appear listed in the portal as well. Let me see if I have a quick example for this. So quick links. So this is, so these are not exactly. It functions similar in a similar fashion. The category. If there's two sets of shortcuts here, they will be divided by a header that would say that these are the quick links category shortcuts, while the next header would be right under with another set of shortcuts. Sorry, I don't have an example for that. So further down, the type of shortcut, the style, we can have shortcuts that have an icon and they take you to a certain area in the system. What we recently introduced was the aggregate function. Here we can add a system list view, which will basically display as a number. Let me quickly take you back to the Arcadia. So it's one of these shortcuts. These shortcuts come from list views. By quickly on this, as you see, as soon as I click on it, a list view appears. So let's quickly see how it is set up. Guess we're running out of time, but we'll try to fit in as much information as we can, and then we can continue in the second webinar if there's any pending questions. So we have a drop-down option to select from the list view options that we have throughout the system. As it says, it's a system list view. Only system list views will appear here. Some people have created personal list views and they weren't able to find it here. So just make sure that whenever you're creating a list view, it is a system list view. Then the next option we have is the aggregation type. So let me just quickly find the exact shortcut so that we can use it as a reference. So current applications, I'll go back to the shortcut. I'll just quickly search that here as well. As you can see, the current application is, it has a list view attached to it. We're using an aggregate function that does the aggregation. What are we counting on the aggregation column? And again, this is the same concept as we previously talked about. We can either pick a field that has a number and maybe provide a total of that number onto that shortcut. I believe I do have an example here. So in this shortcut itself, if you click on it, it will then again take you to the list view. It is basically sum of the award amount or on the shortcut itself. So if we had an amount field that was a number where we could perform the sum or aggregation, that's why we can have that number display on the shortcut. In this scenario, we are doing a count rather than a sum because we do not have any numbers, or we didn't decide basically to add the numbers, but just to really display how many events or records are requiring their attention or are really listed under this shortcut. Let's go back to the shortcut itself. So that's the difference between the count, why we do sum and average based on our one specific need. Precision, we can add precision as if this is more relevant when we are using a number field. Then the link to list view will basically link the list view that is selected here as a go-to of that click. So as soon as you click on it, it will take you to the list view. And again, if you do not select, want to select that, it gives you the option to add a URL that could be linked to a different area of the system. Only the number could come from the list view itself. So it's really more of like a kind of touch up of like what different areas are there, how we can access them. It's a very simple design, as we initially discussed and promised. If there's any questions, feel free to just let us know at the end, or if anything's unclear, I can get back to you via email.
Okay. Now we're going to go to a few questions. So we have, can a user have more than one role? Also, is there any practical limit to the number of roles that we can create?
No, there is no limit. A user can have multiple roles. The big difference between having multiple roles and I'm not sure if it's just that when a person has multiple roles, they will, and if all of the roles have a portal design setup, automatically the system gives you a drop down on the top right hand corner where the menu items were, where you get to choose between which portals you want to access, and you want to see which role or which permissions from that certain role.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay, so I have another one. How do you change the theme to white paper theme?
Okay, so that option is available per section. Let's see. So I'll just quickly log in back here. All right, so the theme comes in place on the sections, and if I quickly take you back to the common portal, so these main menu items will give us the option to select from the sections. So these are the sections that will appear in the theme that we are selected in the main menu item. So the drop downs right here. The default will give you the same look as I had in my presentation screenshot, while the white paper theme will be very similar to the one we demonstrated. Website is more of a website look that displays all the information in boxes. So I guess it's a great practice to really just go ahead and try. As you guys notice, I'm logged in on backup, so I could test and break the system if I need to. So yeah, feel free to just always go on backup and test these different pieces out. And if you guys have any questions, just contact us and we'll help.
Okay, so that's about all the time we have for today. Before we go, I just want to remind everyone to mark your calendars for our upcoming events and to register for the rest of our webinars in August. You can register at smartsimple.com/events. Also, save the dates for Block Party New York, Block Party Nashville, October 17th, Elevate 2018 will be October 17th and 19th, and Block Party Dublin, November 22nd. Thank you so much, everyone, for taking the time to join us for Arcadia X Portals. We hope you found this material useful. We'd love to hear your feedback on today's webinar and encourage you to fill out the client survey, which will be sent to you after this presentation. If you have any questions that pop up along the way, Talal and the SmartSimple support team are always here to help. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.